My name is Faris Sabah, and I'm the County Superintendent of Schools, and I am so proud to welcome all of you to our Think Big series. We're so glad to have you here. We'd love it if you could introduce yourselves in the chat, and please go ahead and put your name and maybe if you're with an organization or if you're a student, we would love it if you could kind of identify yourself and introduce yourself to the community here. We are so excited about today's event, and we are so glad that you're here with us. You know, this pandemic has had such an impact on our community and has really transformed education and communication in so many ways. And it's really exciting for us to be here together to talk about the importance of what we have learned from this pandemic. We've really strengthened our resiliency, and in many ways, it has helped us to connect with each other, to support each other. And part of our mission at the Santa Cruz County Office of Education is to help students and all members of our community to connect, to tap into their passions and further their goals in life. And so we are honored to partner with Santa Cruz Works and support their efforts as a leading networking organization, bringing different innovative companies and their employees together, and also connecting with all students and staff in our schools and our school districts to help make sure that everybody in the education community can also participate in the great events that Santa Cruz Works is putting together. You know, we've been finding out more and more about the amazing opportunities that exist in our community, about the amazing companies that are here in this high-tech workforce. And we're also we're also launching our own high-tech workforce development program. You could find it at cs.santacruzcoe.org. And we are so honored to be a co-partner with Santa Cruz Works to bring somebody who is probably somebody you've heard about quite a lot as a professional surfer and an environmentalist, somebody who followed his dreams and now is an expert in helping students find their passions in life. I'd like to take a moment to introduce a wonderful leader in our community and the Executive Director of Santa Cruz Works. Please welcome Doug Erickson, who's going to be introducing our speaker today. Welcome, Doug.
Hey, thank you, Faris. And I knew you weren't talking about me when you were talking about all the professional surfer and everything. So I'm Doug Erickson, Santa Cruz Works Executive Director, just barely an average surf guy who loves his community. And I'm really proud to be here as well. Next slide. There you go. Hey, welcome everybody again to the Think Big series. And this is the first of many events that we're putting on for students, for teachers, for our general community to really push their minds to the limits and find new things that they can do for themselves, for their community. Dream big, think big. So we're very stoked to have everybody here. And next slide, please, Scott. Couldn't be more proud to introduce Shaun Tomson here. He's been a poster on my childhood walls since since I first got interested in surfing, and then reading his book, The Code, and seeing what he's done, giving this class and these teachings to hundreds of thousands of people from schools and apartheid schools in South Africa that just have dirt floors to the big corporate offices in the Silicon Valley of Google and Apple and such. And so without any further blabbering from me, welcome, Shaun Tomson.
So it's great to be here. If you could just enable the screen sharing for me, that would be awesome. And just like a big shout out to not just the students, but particularly to the teachers. In the later part of my life, I have in some ways become a teacher, and I love the profession. I'm a great admirer of the profession, and a big shout out to all the teachers who've been there for the students during this terribly tough year that we've all experienced during the pandemic. So today, I'm going to talk, and I'm really interested in talking to you about this concept of a code and how you can use words to ride and to catch your next wave. But underlying everything I talk about is power. I'm here to help you find power. A simple word. And why do we want to find power, and what can that power that we have, our internal power, be used for? Over the last year, I've spoken to about 150,000 people, and I've asked people to write their codes, which is 12 lines, every line beginning with I will. And I've come to understand that there are two things that we want out of life, and we need power in order to achieve them. Number one, every single one of us wants to be better. I've read over 1 million lines of code from people, statements from people, and everyone writes two things. One is I want to be better, and I want to help others be better. Words have great power, and words are the precursor to action. Words are the precursor to our goals. Words help us formulate commitment and power to realize those goals. But our words also have power for good, and our words have power for evil. As all of us saw what happened on 1/6, words have power to inspire and influence for good and for evil. I love this quote because the words that we use, the words that we write, the words that we believe are a choice. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know, and you are the one who will decide where to go. You are the one that makes the fundamental choice, and that's from Dr. Seuss. So I want all of you to think of one word and send me a word that describes how you are feeling right now in this new world that you're living in. Teachers and students, send me one word. You can text me the word, or you can go to the web link, polev.com/Shaun Tomson 929. So you can send it either way, and these responses will populate on the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a word cloud. And this word cloud is going to be a representation of our emotions, of how you are all feeling right now in this new world. So send me one word. We're going to wait a couple of minutes for the screen to populate. And I do this exercise, and I've done it many, many times. Anxious. That is an amazing word that really reflects how we're feeling. There is this duality in what we've all experienced during COVID. So the bigger words are the words that are duplicated. So hopeful. So a number of people have said hopeful. Hopeless, optimistic, overwhelmed, tired, blooming, inspired, stable, frustrated. So there certainly is this duality in this COVID experience. But it was interesting that the very first word that came up on the screen was that word anxious, effervescent, hopeless, anticipatory. Keep the words coming, bluish, and then right underneath it, blooming. And there's another word, my favorite word, I think, in the English language, which is stoked. Excited, maybe it's excited or exited, I'm not sure. Keep the words coming. I want to do this for about another 60 seconds. So keep the words coming. Reborn. That's a great word for this time. Tired, old. Certainly many of us have been so beaten down. Hopeful. I love the way that this word hope is coming through stronger than anything else. Unsure. Content. Confused. Burnt. Certainly burnout has been a massive factor in the malaise that has affected all of our lives. Wonderment. That's a great word. Great word. Zoomed out. Zoomed out. I love that one. certainly a number of different levels operating there. Keep the words coming. Stir crazy. Yeah, definitely. We're feeling stir crazy. I mean, I went to my first lunch in a public place today, and it felt so awesome. Interested. So over the last year, like I say, I've done this many, many times with all sorts of groups, from students to rehab clinics to prisons to large corporate, very, very large corporate gatherings. And this is what I found, that we have all been suffering for what I call a sad state of mind. Stress, anxiety, that was the very first word that came up, despair and disconnection. These have been four fundamental problems: stress over our health, economic stress, anxiety, this changed world, what's next, what's going to happen, this massive adjustment that students and teachers have had to make and working people have had to make to working from home, homeschooling, the lack of physical activity, the lack of sport, and then just this malaise of despair, this lack of hope, this being overwhelmed by working in crisis mode, and this disconnection. When Farah spoke, he mentioned three words. One is resilience, and I'm going to talk about resilience today, and one is connectivity. And certainly we've all felt this, this disconnection, the split from family and friends, and this lack of travel. So what I'm going to do today, and I'm hoping that in some ways I can help for a brief time and perhaps even for a prolonged period, is dispel this sad state of mind, this state of mind of stress, anxiety, despair, and disconnection. And I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to give you a perspective on a life that's been lived with passion and purpose. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not giving you a prescription. I am not here to tell you which way to roll and which wave to ride. I'm just giving you the perspective of a life that's been lived with passion and purpose. And I'm going to give you the CODE method, this amazing method, this transformational method that can help you find your purpose, find your power, and find your path. It is super simple, and every single one of you is going to spend 15 minutes, and you're all going to write your code today, and you're all going to share the code. And I tell you what, we're going to create a wave of positive emotion that's going to roll right through this group of us. So you might ask, what is a code? You might have heard about the Marine Code and the Scouts Code, and different companies have a code. Well, a code is simply a list of values, of words and statements that are important to you as a human being. And these values are the power behind purposeful action. Values are, in fact, power. So I want to start off with the perspective on passion and purpose, and then I'm going to talk to you about the code, the application, and then all of us are going to do this code exercise. So, like I say, my perspective is a perspective of passion and purpose. So to give you a little bit of background about me, I grew up in a place called Durban, South Africa. I grew up in a segregated society. It was a system called apartheid. Apartheid in the Afrikaans language means apartness. It was institutionalized, systemic discrimination. At a very, very young age, of course, you don't realize that. You're just living in the status quo. I grew up on the beach in Durban, South Africa. That's my mom. My mom was a survivor. She grew up on the island of Malta during the Second World War, endured 3,400 air raids, spent 2 years living underground in underground bomb shelters. They were being bombed by the Nazis and the Italians during the Second World War. It was the most heavily bombed place in the history of the world. My mom endured 2 direct hits, ultimately was evacuated down to South Africa and ended up in Durban on the way back to England. And her mother said, this is where we're going to live. And she just loved the beach. And my earliest memories are being on the beach with my mom and my father. My father was a beach boy from his youth. He became South African junior swimming champion at 13. And his dream was to represent his country in the Olympic Games. But life had something else in store for my father. The Second World War intervened. In 1939, he joined up, became a tail gunner flying American Marauder aircraft, bombing the same Nazis and Italians that were bombing my mother. Came back from the war in 1945, resumed his swimming career and was training for the 1948 London Olympics. and was out there in the surf in Durban on a little wooden surfboard. And this is what happened to my father. And these are his words from the front page of the local newspaper. It was an ideal day for surfing and for sharks. The Zambezi shark came up underneath my father and hit him so hard, I was lifted clear from the water, and in one bite nearly bit his right arm off. Savage, his right arm, dropped him back in the water and left him there. And my father, in later life, after I was born, I would ask him about the attack. He would very seldom speak about, but he said the scariest moment of his life was when he was lying in the water with blood all around him, and that black fin was circling him, and all his friends deserted him. Ultimately, my father was never again able to swim properly and was never going to represent his country in the Olympics, but he had this unbelievable passion and love for the ocean. And the shark bite never changed that. And my earliest memories of my father teaching me how to swim and surf right at this terrific break right in front of our home called the Bay of Plenty, about 100 meters away from where he'd been nearly killed by shark attack. I caught my first wave right there in the whitewater, surfed in my very first competition at the Bay of Plenty when I was 10 years old, and I was what they call an instant success. I got third in my very first event. There was only 3 of us in the lineup at the time, but I still saw it as getting a third. So last place out of the 3, maybe to some wasn't an auspicious start to a surfing career, but ultimately I started doing better than 3 out of 3. And I went on to a successful surfing career. My father took me for my bar mitzvah. That's, I'm Jewish, and when you come into manhood when you're 13 years old, you have your bar mitzvah. My bar mitzvah present was a trip to Hawaii to go and surf the big waves. And one of the proudest moments for my father was when I made the South African team at 14 years old. You can see that's a photo of my dad and myself. You can see his arm was shriveled up, his wrist was shriveled up from the shark attack. But I started to do well competitively. I won my first major event while I was in the South African Army. Everyone in South Africa had to spend a year in the Army. When I was 17 years old, it was called the Gunston 500. It went on to become one of the biggest surfing events in the world. I won it 6 times in a row eventually, and ultimately I became a world surfing champion. At the time, I was the youngest to win, the oldest to win. I won 19 major pro events in my career, and it was a fun life, helping to create this sport and turn a lifestyle into a sport. That's a picture of my cousin and I when I won the world title. Then was the cover of the surfing magazines, and then also started my first company when I was 24 years old. It was called Instinct. I called it Instinct because the best moments in surfing are when you're riding inside the tube, and the best tubes happen when you're operating on instinct. We sponsored surfers all over the world. We had really emotional taglines for our ads. These were very famous ads at the time. Waiting for waves is okay. Most people spend their lives waiting for nothing. I sponsored other surfers. I sponsored this young guy, Tom Carroll, to 2 world titles. In fact, in 1985, we were gunning it out the whole year, the 2 of us, and he narrowly beat me, and he was first and I was second. But it was wonderful to sponsor this young guy as well, Barton Lynch, who went on to become the 1988 World Surfing Champion. So at a young age, I thought it was really important to mentor other young people as well, to help them realize their dreams. And I got to tell you, helping other people is just so satisfying. And I always like to say that who gets the most out of it when you help others? I think you do as the donor. So I started my company, and I called it Instinct because the best moments happen when you're operating, when you're right inside that tube, when you feel that you can actually control that wave. And this is what it feels like.
When you get into a deep barrel, it certainly feels like time's expanded, like life has slowed down. I felt that I could curve that wall to my will. I really felt that. It's a magical, magical moment. It's an incredible moment.
My God, he changed the way we rode tubes off the wall. Like all of us at the time, we were thinking about what we could do to leave our mark. And Shaun, you know, had a huge influence of the evolvement of modern day tube riding.
He's doing things on single fins in the 70s that, you know, a lot of guys aren't doing on their thrusters now. You know, the barrel shots, there's some slow motion shots of him riding the foam ball. Just unbelievable, modern, way ahead of its time barrel riding.
So it was a great life as a professional surfer. And during my career, for a while I was ranked at a number of different stages, #1 surfer in the world. I got a phone call in the mid-'80s from a guy called Glenn Henning. And he said, Shaun, one of the most famous waves in the world, Malibu in California. Every surfer around the world has heard of Malibu, and it's obviously an iconic place in an iconic way. He said the break's facing a severe environmental challenge, and I want to do something about it. I want to start an NGO, a non-profit that's dedicated to preserving and protecting the world's waves, oceans, and beaches. And Malibu is really going to be our first test case. He said, I'd like you to be our first ambassador. He said, we need a picture of you. And he said, we want to do a first ad. I said, what I'll do is I'll give you a picture and I'll even write the copy for your first ad. And I said right at the beginning of my presentation that words have great power. And the words that have the most power are not words of others, but the words that we write ourselves. And I wrote these words, these 5 words, and these words have, for me, become a touchstone. They have really become a North Star. And this was the very first ad back in 1984 for Surfrider Foundation. Do a good turn today. And obviously for everyone that's a surfer, the turn is a fundamental maneuver in surfing, and it has that double meaning of just do a good turn, do something good. And just by joining Surfrider Foundation, one can do something good. And that was an organization that just started from one man's mission to help Malibu and ultimately help the world's waves, oceans, and beaches. Today, we have a budget of about $14 million a year. We have millions of dedicated supporters and activists around the world. And it was wonderful for me to have been involved right from the beginning and given my little contribution. So after I retired from the tour, my wife and I moved from South Africa to the United States, and I was hired by a wonderful man and his wife, Yvonne Chouinard and Melinda Chouinard, who are the founders of an amazing company called Patagonia. They brought our family out for 2 years. I worked for Patagonia, and a lot of you might have heard of Patagonia. And if you haven't heard of Patagonia, I would suggest you read up on them. It's really the world's first company that was focused on social purpose, social justice, and using profit as a vehicle for good, and using profit as a vehicle to uplift the planet. So it was wonderful 2 years I spent in Patagonia. I learned a lot from Yvonne Chouinard about the simple thesis and the basic ethos of the company that doing good is good for business. And every single one of you is going to have to go out into the workforce. You're going to earn money 2 ways, unless your parents are independently wealthy and you don't have to work. One is that you're going to become employees, and the other is that you're going to become entrepreneurs and you're going to create your own company. But this simple ethos can apply to any company, and it can apply to any endeavor in which you get involved with. Doing good is good for business. And Yvonne would say to me, Shaun, every time I've made the right choice about doing something good, that has worked out with a positive impact on the bottom line. So I worked for Patagonia for a couple of years, and then my wife Carla and I decided, she's a really hot designer, decided to start our own brand. And we decided to call it Solitude. Like I said, I called my first company Instinct because it was all about operating inside that tube, operating on instinct, pure thought, perfect action. And then we decided to call it Solitude because life was becoming so busy. We were all getting connected via the web. And solitude was about escape, just paddling out towards that open horizon, that feeling of escape. And obviously, I wanted to bring a lot of the ideas and ethos that I'd learned at Patagonia to bear with our company Solitude. We were the first company in the surfing industry to go down a path of sustainability. We started printing board shorts without using conventional dyes. So we were really focused on doing good as well. And then we located the company right across the road from one of the most famous beaches in the world, a place called Rincon. So when the surf at Rincon is good, you can catch a wave and ride it for nearly a mile. All those dots in the water are not seals, but they surface an exhilarating wave, surface from all over the state, from all over the world, in fact, gather at Rincon when the surf is good. So I'm sitting in my office one day right across the road from Rincon at Solitude, and I get a call, and it's from Glenn Henning, the same guy that started Surf Rider Foundation. And he said to me, Shaun, your adopted home break of Rincon, like Malibu, is facing a severe environmental challenge. He said all the homeowners on the bluff, and those are all multi-million-dollar homes. The cheapest home in there is most probably $5 or $6 million. He said they're all connected up to septic tank systems. He said when it rains, the water table rises up and the effluent from the septic tanks overflows, and it flows out in the river that bisects the break, and the effluent flows out and it gets the surface sick. He said, and I want to do something about it. He said, and I want your help. I said, Glenn, that's a massive problem. I mean, I reckon to get all the homeowners connected up to the sewer line, that's like a $30 million problem. He said, it's a big problem. He said, but we're going to solve it. He said, and we're going to solve it through students just like yourselves. He said, Shaun, you've got a $100 budget. I said, Glenn, I got a $100 budget. What am I going to do with $100? How can I solve this problem? He said, this is what we're going to do. He said, I'm going to bring a group of students, about 100 students, down to the beach. We're going to bring the media down. We're going to bring some of the state officials down. We're going to bring the local government officials down. He said, and we're going to create awareness of the problem through the students exactly like yourselves. And he said, I want you to give something to the students to inspire them. So we're like, what can I do for $100 for 100 students? Like, that's $1 a student. What can I do? At the time, my wife and I had a warehouse filled with super cool Solitude product. This is one of our old shirts. I thought, well, maybe I'll give all the students the cool shirt. And I knew all the CEOs of all the big surfing companies, Billabong, Quicksilver, Rip Curl, you name it, I knew them. I thought maybe I'll give them some gear or sunglasses. But then I thought, no, I'm going to do something different. And right at the beginning of my presentation, I said to you that words have great power. So I picked up a sheet of paper, and every single one of you are going to do the same exercise a little bit later. And in 15 minutes, I wrote 12 lines, every line beginning with I will. And I wrote down the 12 fundamental lessons that surfing had taught me about life. Faris had spoken about resilience. So you can look inside there, and I will always paddle back out. I mean, that speaks to resilience. About connectivity, I will watch out for other surfers after a big set. I will realize that all surfers are joined by one ocean. And every single line began with I will, because this was a code of commitment. This was a code of action. This was a code of purpose. This was a code of not sitting on your bum and letting the world go by, but this was a code about making something happen. And then I printed them up on a little plastic card, and I printed out 100 cards, and it cost me $100. I still carry my little card around with me in my wallet. And I gave out 100 cards to the students that came down to the beach the following week. And I'll absolutely, unequivocally state that doing this changed my life. Writing 12 lines, every line beginning with I will, writing my surface code, and handing it out to those students ultimately took my life down a different path. So the cards were popular. Kids loved the cards, and ultimately the media loved the cards, the officials loved the card, and it turned into a groundswell. And we started printing the cards and putting them in the pockets of all of our clothing, and ultimately hundreds of thousands of these cards were distributed out into the society and into the culture. But how did they make an impact? Well, I think the cards helped raise awareness of the problem at Rincon, and ultimately many environmental groups got involved, and the environmental problem was solved. But Surface Code took on a life of its own, and people would phone me up and say, hey, Shaun, why don't you come and talk at our school, our university, our rehab clinic, our prison, our large corporate leadership gathering. I mean, I spoke at one event, the guy said to me, Shaun, we want you to open this leadership conference. It's going to have like 2,000 people. I went, well, that's pretty intimidating. He said, you're going to be the first speaker, and then there's going to be Malcolm Gladwell, and then there's going to be Richard Branson. I went, well, that's pretty heavy company. And I'm there just talking about surface code. At one of the events, a guy came up to me afterwards. He said, Shaun, I think this would make a cool book. So I went, okay, but I've never written a book. He said, well, I've never written a book as well, but I'm a professor of French literature at Drury University in the Midwest. He said, I know a lot about literature and writing. So over summer, we collaborated, and together we wrote our first book, and it was called Surface Code. And it was an exploration of every single one of those 12 lines. Like, why did I write, I'll never fight a riptide? Why did I write in the 15-minute period, I'll always paddle back out? So Surface Code became popular. And then one day, I'm sitting out in the lineup at Rincon, the same break that had the environmental problem. And the guy paddles up and he said, Shaun, my name's Gordon Sichi. I'm a headmaster or principal at a local school, Anacapa School. We only have 80 students, very small high school, and 2 old farmhouses. He said, I'd love you to come and talk to the students about your book about surface code. So I cruise down, and the local media comes down there. You can see there's a picture of me in front of the blackboard, and I'm chatting to the students, just like you guys and girls, about surface code. And while I'm chatting to the students, I have an idea. And I go, surface code is my code. I wrote it, 12 lines. Every line begins with I will. I wrote it in 15 minutes, 105 words. I said, what about your code? Once you write your code, write down your purpose, write down your passion, write down your power, write down your path, write it down and send it to me. 12 lines. Every line begins with I will. 15 minutes. So about a week later, I get back the codes, 12 students, and 80 students, 12 lines, nearly 1,000 lines of code. And the very first line of code I get back is from a young girl, Elena Alcera. I will always be myself. Power. For me, those words were words of absolute, unequivocal power. I'm not going to be pushed around. I'm not going to be made to do something that I don't want to do. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to succumb to peer pressure. I will be myself. And then those other amazing words, I will not compromise on my morals to fit in with others. I will do what I enjoy. I will not do what other people want me to do simply to please others. I'll remain positive. I'll respect my elders. I mean, I saw these words and I was so taken with these words. I was so stoked out of my mind. I immediately phoned up Patrick, my co-author of Surface Code. I said, Patrick, we're going to write another book. We're going to write another book. And the book's going to have 12 chapters. And every single chapter title is going to come from a student. Exactly like you guys and girls. It's going to come from students. And this book is going to be a book about power. So together we wrote our second book, and you can see there the very first chapter, I'll Be Myself. And the book became popular there for a while. It was #1 on Amazon in the teen section, and I was really stoked. And this book was very special to me. And now I speak and I get students all over the world to write their codes. This is pretty, and I get thousands and thousands of emails and codes written, and it's just the most inspiring thing for me to read. Hey, Shaun, my name's Garrison. I met you tonight at Flower Hill Mall, and your words just resonated with me. I knew you as a surfer kid because only surfer kids spell resonated like the resin that goes on the surfboard. Anyway, look at that last line. His dad told me his son was 14 years old and was facing some severe challenges. And he wrote that last line, I'll live another day. Words of power, words of commitment, words of hope. At some school, students, this was Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy in Florida, they create these amazing graphics and they put them up, they make an art exhibition. And when I went to the school and I saw this art exhibition, I could see that these words of these students, and they put it in the yearbook, the words of these students weren't only inspiring to themselves, but they were inspiring to others. And these students were creating a wave of positive emotional contagion throughout the school. And I could just see that, man, this is so awesome to see inside the souls of students. And it was so empowering. And these graphics were so uplifting. I will let my dreams outshine my fears. I will follow my dreams. I'll follow my own path. I will design, I will electrify, I will tell my own story. This is students in South Africa. I'll be different. Okay, the students riding a great white shark, talking about being different. I will focus on my future. I'll be a positive vibe. So, I was so fascinated by this that I went back to grad school because I wanted to study the theory of influence and inspiration. I went back and did a master's in leadership science, and I came across some unbelievable statistics. So we all know that close to 600,000 Americans over the last 14 months have died from COVID. But what we don't know is that 1 million Americans every year die from poor choices, from bad decisions. Here's the scientific article by Professor Rolf Keeney. Personal decisions are the leading cause of death. 1 million out of the 2.4 million deaths can be attributed to personal decisions. So our choices are life and death. And there's this psychological phenomenon, they call it the ripple effect, an emotional contagion. How we are emotionally, how we treat others, how people see who we are inside through our feelings can have profound impact on others. So we all have this incredible power of influence for good and for evil. I came across this other study on emotional contagion with Facebook and the National Academy of Sciences. So this is one of the biggest social studies in the history of the world, and no one knows about it. 689,000 people were studied by Facebook. Experimental evidence of massive scale emotional contagion through social networks. So all of us, through Twitter, through Snapchat, through Facebook, through Instagram, through TikTok, through no matter what you do with a keystroke, with bits and bytes, you can positively or negatively influence others through what you do. So your words and your choices have unbelievable power. The concept, drop a stone, start a ripple, build a wave. Drop a stone, start a ripple, build a wave. Based on this thesis, I will equals power. I will equals power. Your choices have unbelievable power to impact others. So I thought I want to do an experiment. Is it possible to create a positive wave across a nation? Is it possible to get students just like yourselves, influencing others and ultimately creating a positive wave across a nation by getting students just like yourselves to inspire each other with words of purpose, getting students to write their codes, share their codes, and create this awesome wave of positivity that can flow across the nation based on that simple equation, I will equals power. I will equals power. So I thought I would do an experiment. And I went back to my homeland and I hooked up with the biggest insurance company in the country and one of the big book publishers and said, I want to do a tour right across the country to the poorest schools and to the richest schools and to some schools in between, 35 schools, 60,000 students, and get students just like yourselves to commit to the code. We handed out hundreds of thousands of these badges, live the code, I will. And I embarked on my journey. Like I say, when I grew up in South Africa, I grew up in a segregated society. It was like the South in the 50s and the 60s before the civil rights explosion. There was legalized systemic discrimination and segregation in South Africa. It all ended and started to end in 1990 when Nelson Mandela was released from prison. And ultimately in 1994, South Africa had its first democratic election and Nelson Mandela was elected president. of the Democratic Republic of South Africa. So now, even though there's no longer segregation and discrimination in South Africa, there's still economic segregation. And the very poor schools are populated by Black students. So now I wanted to speak to everyone. Color has never been an issue with me in my life. And I wanted to speak to the poorest schools, the schools in the middle, and the richest schools. So a woman who's a journalist of one of the biggest TV stations in the world had heard about my program of empowerment for students and said, Shaun, I want to come down and cover your tour. Said, I want to come down on your first stop. I said, you know, I'm a bit nervous. I said, these young students, this was about 350 miles inland in a suburb of Johannesburg called Katlehong. I said, these young students know nothing about surfing. Surfing is like not part of their consciousness. These students have never been to the beach. They've never been to the ocean. They've never seen the ocean. And also, I'm a white dude. They might see me as representative of apartheid, as representative of the old regime. They might not understand my metaphors. I'm a bit nervous. Can you come later in the tour? She said, listen, I'm a journalist and I'm coming tomorrow. And this is what she found.
Surfer Shaun Tomson is one of South Africa's finest sporting heroes. Famous for his style of riding the tube section of the wave, Tomson won the International Professional Surfers World Championship in 1977. Considered one of the 10 greatest surfers of all time, he now inspires others to follow his paddle. In this underprivileged school in Katlehong on the east side of Johannesburg, Tomson shares with youngsters a simple strategy for confronting everyday challenges and making positive, life-changing decisions.
It's so wonderful to be inspiring some young kid in Johannesburg or Durban or Los Angeles, anywhere, just to know that you drop that little pebble in the water and what's it done? It's created a wave. And that wave is going to go and touch lives.
In 12 personal stories, Shaun shares the power of I will, a code that carries him through life.
While yes, this little code that I wrote, 12 lines that I wrote so many years ago, was about surfing, it's like every line is a metaphor and can be interpreted in so many different ways. It's about how you can be a good person, how you can be a good human being, how you can make a difference in the world, how you can impact others. So I've been on this journey for 10 years now, since I lost my beautiful son. And surfing was this constant. Surfing helped get me back on the path to healing again.
Many of these teenagers have barely seen a beach, but the code has resonated among them.
I will achieve my goals. I will be better. I will dream big, and I will be who I want to be.
I will arise and shine, and I will face my fears, and I will take charge of my life.
Although all these youngsters were born after apartheid, many of them are still trapped by poverty. But the code is giving them courage to change their lives.
In this country, are deprived of opportunities, and I will break that cycle of being deprived of opportunities, and I will create opportunities for myself.
This book will give me the courage that I don't have. I think it will give me that power to do what I want to do and to believe in myself.
Shaun Tomson's The Code is about many things: faith, courage, creativity, determination. But above all, it's about promises we make to ourselves, about the future, and to turn hope into action. Julie Shara, CGTN, Katlehong, South Africa.
So how about those young people? You must remember, those are students with nothing. They have nothing but hope and a desire to be better. Like that first beautiful young girl said, I will dream big, I will be better. I will dream big, I'll be better. So these are young students. That's what they call a 7-day school. Those young students go to school 7 days a week because they realize that education is their way out of poverty. So for me, when I saw this little piece, I was so inspired by the words of these young students. So I went across the country speaking. This is the first Black school in South Africa. This is where Nelson Mandela voted for democracy in 1994, an amazing principal, Justice from Shaun. He said, Shaun, I wish you could come to my school every month. I said, no, I'm living in Santa Barbara. I wish I could too, but just amazing young students. This was one of the greatest days of my life. I met this young man, Ernest Bongani Nkosi, when he was 10 years old. His mom worked for my mom, and Ernest was in the garden, gardening to earn extra money for school. And I met him and he said, Shaun, I need money for my school. I was a pro surfer making tons of money. I helped him with money through his schooling. He graduated. He said, Shaun, I need money for university. And in those days, in segregated South Africa, not many Black kids going to university. I said, sure, I'll help pay your way through university. And then just kept doing well at university. And then I moved to the United States and I lost touch with Ernest Bongani Nkosi. And when I got back to South Africa, I got a phone call. Hey, Shaun, it's Ernest Bongani Nkosi here. Do you remember me? I said, of course I remember you. He said, I want to tell you about my life. So when I think about it now, I just want to cry, man. I have 2 university degrees. I have 2 teaching credentials. I'm a principal of 1,600 students, and you are coming to speak at my school. And I came to the school. This is one of the classrooms. And Ernest stood up before me and he spoke. It just took my breath away. I've spoken with some of the finest speakers in the world, Gladwell, Branson, but Ernest, it was like hearing a young Martin Luther King or a young JFK or a young Obama or a young Mandela. It was just amazing. And to know that I'd given him something so small and he turned it into this incredible bounty was such a great feeling. So I went across the country speaking at massive schools, getting kids stoked up. This is Elon Musk's alma mater. If you want to know where Elon Musk got some of his mojo from, you can read what some of these young 14-year-old boys write. I will change the world, the first kid writes, and the last kid, I will be a conqueror. This was an amazing moment. This was a large school, a couple of thousand kids. And yes, the kids look like they're beautifully dressed in their school uniforms, but they come from impoverished circumstances, but they have such great, incredible pride and this desire to learn. So I asked the students afterwards, who wants to come and share one line of code? And none of the students wanted to walk up, and everyone was quite shy. I mean, 2,400 students, a massive hall. So eventually, the young student in the right-hand corner, that's probably the smallest student in the school, walks up. She's about 4'4", tiny little student. And she walks up in front of everyone, and I put the microphone under her mouth. She puts her arms in the air and goes, I will be a strong Black woman. And the place just went ballistic. They lifted it up and carried it around, and then all the students came up. I'll be a doctor. I'll be a lawyer. I'll be a physicist. And when you make a statement like that publicly, and teachers can read the academic research on this, yes, it creates personal commitment. Yes, it's a way to identify and move towards your goal, but also it creates accountability. When you make that statement, when you verbalize your thoughts, when you make a commitment to action in front of others, it creates accountability, which is part of the motivation and part of the likelihood and probability of one achieving success. So now I do this program with all sorts of group. This was Santa Barbara County Jail, a group of female prisoners, a group of male prisoners. I will always do the next right thing. I will never go back there. I will always be grateful. I will forgive. I do it with athletes. For any of you out there that are athletes, this little code concept can have great application in realizing your athletic dreams. This young kid, Zeke Lau from Hawaii, looks like a warrior, couldn't get out of 25th place. He was sponsored by a brand with which I've been associated my entire surfing career, Channel Islands, couldn't get out of 25th. And I'd watch him surf and go, wow, this young surfer is so talented, but he just can't get his mind around focusing and realizing his potential. I emailed him, hey Zeke, write 12 lines, every line beginning with I will. This exercise is called writing your code, and it's the ultimate map for your life tomorrow. It's the way for a warrior. Zeke writes his code. I promise you, he goes from 25th to 3rd in one event in one event, 25th to 3rd, later wins one of the biggest events in the world, and the following year wins the same event that I won in order to become the world champion. Didn't become the world champion, but won this amazing event. I work with the rugby teams. This little rugby, I mean, I'm not taking responsibility for Zeke's success or this rugby team's success. It's one of the greatest rugby teams in the world, from 8th place and ultimately won the equivalent of the Super Bowl. But I'm saying that this simple code, this simple process of introspection, thought, words, and then a commitment to action can have massive, massive power in realizing your dreams and achieving success. So now I do it with some of the biggest companies in the world: Google, GM, PwC, Cisco, Disney. I get people to write the code. So just to go through this process again, the code is a simple tool to activate purpose, and purpose is power. And it's a purpose is the power that enables organizations and individuals to thrive. I like to think that purpose is a North Star. Purpose is a higher calling. Here's an acronym I developed for purpose, little acronym, AMAP. Like, think about purpose as this high order goal. Purpose is aspirational. It's something you aspire towards. Purpose is inspirational. Your purpose inspires you to great things, to thinking big, to going big. Your purpose is moral. It has an essential moral element. Your purpose is authentic. Your purpose is your purpose alone. It's no one else's purpose. It's not your mom's purpose, your dad's purpose, your teacher's purpose, your mate's purpose, your friend's. Your purpose is yours alone. It's authentic. It's real. And purpose is timeless. Purpose is not like a SMART goal, specific, immeasurable, achievable, relative, time sensitive. That's not purpose. Purpose is timeless. Like I said, I wrote this 20 years ago, still in my wallet. And when life goes sideways, as life does go sideways, you heard in that little video clip, my rationale for doing what I do and my rationale for helping others is because it helps me, because I lost my beautiful son, who was the same age as many of you out there, 50 and a half, when he died by playing a dangerous game, by making a poor choice. So choice and power are very, very, very dear to me. So why is purpose important? A number of reasons here. Makes you live longer. This is a study of 73,000 people. All of you are going to have to go out in the workforce. It leads to greater engagement, motivation, productivity, and retention. I'm not just shoving data out here to make this boring, but purpose is power. And why is purpose important in this context of the code? Find your purpose, find your power, find your path. And this is what this little code process does. And why is lack of purpose important? So this is Gallup. This is a very big statistical analyzer. Like they say 85% of employees worldwide are disengaged. So imagine when you're going to go out into the workforce and you're working a job and you hate it and you disengage. What kind of life is that, man? Find your purpose, find your power, and find your path. So this method is super simple, and we're all going to do it a little bit later. We're going to do it in not too many minutes. Let's see, in about 10 minutes, we're going to do this. Everyone's going to write the code. 12 lines, every line begins with I will. You're going to write it in 15 minutes. And we're not going to read the code aloud, but you're going to send me in some codes and I'll show you how to do it. So it's going to be pretty cool. This is what some companies do. They put it up on boards, but ultimately it's all about this I will equals power. So I'm going to tell you 2 stories, and then we're all going to get stuck in. I'm going to write our codes. And I cannot wait to see what you're going to write. So my first story is the choice. The choice between life or death. One of my first winters in Hawaii. Hawaii was like the place where every surfer had to go. This was like our Mount Everest. I just finished my first year studying economics at Patel University, finished my first year in the Army, and I embarked on trip to Hawaii. My very first day here in Hawaii, I just paddled out for my first surf. As I took off on my first wave, the guy ran me over, and I've just come back from the hospital You can see my legs are all taped up from the severe lacerations. And I'm walking on the beach, and I've just found out that my mate, who I've been staying with, is bailing back to South Africa. I've got nowhere to stay. So I'm feeling a bit downcast. Photographer managed to catch it right at that moment. Got nowhere to stay. And I'm like, wow, well, what am I going to do now? I run into a young guy, same age as me, 19 years old, on the beach. He says, hey, Shaun, why don't you come and stay with me and my family? My mom and dad have a little apartment under the house that you can rent, and it'll be cool. Now, he was same age as me, also really, really good surfer, and we surfed together. And I mean, he was a hot surfer. So stay at the place, and I'm there for a few weeks, really digging it and enjoying it. And Hawaii, I'm staying in a really, really cool place. And then the one day after surfing, I wander up to his room. And he's sitting, I'll never forget, he's sitting at the foot of his bed. He's got some aluminium foil, and he's got a burner underneath it and a straw. He's got some white powder on the aluminium foil. It's burning it, and smoke's coming off it, and he's taking the hits. He takes another hit, looking at me, going, hey, what's this? He said, come on, Shaun, man. Take a hit with me. I'm going, what is it? He said, it's called Chasing the Dragon. Chasing the Dragon, man. Sounds pretty cool, Chasing the Dragon. Takes another hit. I said, but what is it? He said, nah, it's China White, man, China White. Okay, but what is it? He said, come on, man, take a hit. All the guys at Pipeline are doing it, and that's what I wanted to be, man. I wanted to be one of the guys at Pipeline. Pipeline was like the most dangerous wave in the world. That's where the greatest surfers in the world did their stuff. And I just wanted to be one of those guys. I said, but what is it? He said, man, it's heroin. Heroin. I tell you what, I had to make that choice. And I promise you, every single one of you, you're gonna have to make that choice. It's gonna be life and death. Life and death, and that's the decision that you're gonna have to make. I took one look, I walked downstairs, packed my bags, and I got out of there. And 3 weeks later, I got the news that my friend had OD'd and died from an overdose. So I tell you that story because I think back to how my beautiful son died. My son died by playing a dangerous game called the choking game that you obviously heard about at school, and I'll never know whether he was a victim of peer pressure or it was some sort of rite of passage. But he made a bad choice, and I'm here today to ask all of you that the day is going to come when you are going to have to make that choice. And dying young is a bad decision. And here are the stats: 20,000 deaths of young people just like yourselves could be avoided by positive decision making. And this little code can help you make a positive decision because it can give you the power to make the right decision. And it can give you the power to say yes when it's needed, and it can give you the power to say no when needed. And what I ask of all of you, if there's one thing that you remember, the power of the code, and the second thing is when that choice comes your way, just think twice. Just think twice, because often that instinctive decision is not the right decision. And sometimes you need some introspection, and sometimes you need some rationality to a decision. So I want you to think about that one and think twice. So now here's a story about resilience. Harris spoke about, mentioned resilience in his opening words. So the biggest wave during my career, like the big daddy, like the Mavericks of the surfing world, Mavericks hadn't been discovered back then, was a place called Waimea Bay. So Waimea Bay was, it only broke when every single other wave was unrideable. Just this terrifying wave. It was like Mount Everest. And I managed to make the finals of one of the world's biggest surfing contests when the surf was pretty small. At another break, it was about 10 to 15 feet at a place called Sunset Beach, and it moved to Waimea Bay. And suddenly the surf got so big, that was the new location. I'd never surfed it. I never had a board big enough. I had to run around the beach, borrow a board, borrow this orange board. And I remember paddling out into the biggest waves I had ever seen in my life. These waves were so big that they broke in slow motion. And when they landed on themselves, they just blew up like a terrific explosion of unimaginable ferocity and power. And I'm paddling out, seeing these waves, and I'm just freaking out. I'm so scared, but I'm determined that I want to win this event. So I'm paddling out. There's 6 of us in the final. I'm paddling out with these 5 legendary surfers from Australia and Hawaii, and everyone sits in a group waiting for that first wave. I'm the only guy that's never surfed out there before. And I'm going to get the first wave, and I paddle around everyone, and the first wave comes to me, and it's about 20 feet, and I paddle into it, 20, 25 feet, and I jump to my feet, and that's me jumping to my feet, 19 years old, and I think, man, I got this. And the thought just goes through my mind, I got this. And next thing, the wave goes vertical, and I'm free falling through space. And I'm thinking in my mind, maybe I don't got this. And this is what happens to me. I free fall through space, I bounce across the surface of the water, and then the whole Pacific Ocean converges and lands on my back. And it hits me so hard, it knocks every single iota of air out of my body and takes me down about 30 feet down to where the coral and smashes me there. It takes me down so deep, feels like my eardrums are going to burst, my eyes are going to pop out of my head, and all I can do is try to protect my head because I think I'm going to be smashed on the coral. And I'm being spun around like in this terrible vortex, like a whirlpool, like in a big washing machine down there. And I'm thinking, man, I got 17 seconds to live. Because big waves, it's a classic wave period, they come about 17 seconds apart. And I know if I don't get up in 17 seconds, the next wave is going to come over me. And if 2 waves come over me while I'm underwater, I'm dead. Today they have sophisticated breath holding techniques and people train and train. In those days, there was no way you were going to survive it. They call it a 2-wave holder. So I'm swimming up, and I know I've got to get through the surface before the next wave. And I burst through. And let me tell you, I get the one gulp that saves my life, and then the next wave impacts me, boom, and I get smashed, and I go through the whole rigmarole again. But I've got the breath that saved my life, and I get washed in all the way to my board, where it's floating in the riptide. In those days, there's no jet ski, no one coming and rescuing you on the jet ski. It's just you and your board and your little red shorts. Let me tell you. And I clamber up my board, no leg ropes in those days, no lifeguards. I clamber up on my board, and I'm 50 yards away from the beach, and it's 300 yards out to hell, to where the legends are surfing and the final is going on. And I have to make a fundamental decision. What do I do? Do I paddle in, or do I paddle back out? And I promise you, I'll absolutely unequivocally state that every single one of you are going to be in that same position. It's going to be in a different context, but you're going to have to make the decision. You're going to have to make the choice. What do? When you're being busted and beaten and broken, do you paddle in? Or do you paddle back out? Paddle in, you paddle back out. And that choice and that decision will define you. And I lay there, and I was so scared, man. I was so scared. I was shivering with fear, but I knew I had to go. I knew I had to go. And I swung around and I started paddling out. And with each stroke, I felt stronger. I felt the power start to come back in me. And I paddled out, and I paddled right back out of the lineup, and a huge wave came to it, and I swung around, and I got a bomb, and I felt invincible. And I paddled back out again. I got another incredible wave. And I paddled back out, and I got another 3rd wave. And I was just feeling on top of the world, like I had vanquished the fear. And I've come to the realization that once you have that terrible wipeout, only by paddling back out again can you get the next wave. And then the siren blew, and the 6 of us paddled in, me and the 5 legends. And there was thousands of people there, and we're on the beach, and the TV cameras there, ABC, CBS, NBC, they're all filming it. And they started announcing the results. And in 6th place, Shaun Tomson, yes. And I ran up there like Rocky. I ran up there like I'd won the greatest victory of my life. I went on to win 19 major pro events, the youngest guy to win, the oldest guy to win. I had the longest career. All my records have been broken now by Kelly Slater. But that was my greatest victory. 6th place out of 6 at the Smirnoff Pro when I was 19 years old. And I proved to myself that no matter what, I'd paddle back out again. I would find the courage, I'd find the hope to paddle back out again. So I want to end with one last story, and then I want to, we're all going to do the code exercise. So the last story, I think, is the most important story I can tell you. And Faris had mentioned that word connectivity, and this is a story about connectivity and about sharing and about love and about what's most precious in our lives. So there's a legend in Santa Barbara that we all live under the Rainbow Bridge. And the legend comes from the Chumash people, the Native American tribe that peopled this coastline. In fact, the oldest human remains are found around Santa Barbara. The oldest inhabitants of North America are the Chumash people, 13,500 years ago. And the legend is that there's an island just south of where we live in Santa Barbara. It's called Santa Cruz Island. And that the Chumash people were created by Hutash, the Earth Mother, from a magic seed. And the people grew from this magic seed, and Hutash's husband, the Milky Way, the sky snake, sent out a bolt of lightning to give the people fire. And the people proliferated and proliferated on Santa Cruz Island. But in one of the very first stories of sustainability or lack of sustainability, the people ate all their resources and they started to starve. There was no food left. So they prayed to the Earth Mother, please send more food. She said, no, I'm not going to send you more food. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rainbow bridge for you. I'm going to create a bridge on which you can travel and cross over to a new life and a new on the mainland. Of course, the rainbow represents hope in Judeo-Christianity in the same way that it represents hope in a new life for the Chumash people. She said, but don't look down. And I said right at the beginning of my talk, I'm not giving you the prescription, because when you give someone a prescription, generally behavior goes in the opposite way of what's prescribed. So the people started to cross the Rainbow Bridge. And of course, some people looked down, they got dizzy and they fell into the channel and they started drowning. So Hutash saw all her people drowning and didn't know what to do. So she changed them all into dolphins. So now the legend is that I surf in their channel and the surf breaks along the channel all the time. And there's always these dolphins, and that is the ancestors of the Chumash people. So my favorite break, and where I like to think the Rainbow Bridge actually came down, is right near my home here in Montecito in Santa Barbara, the beautiful little beach called Hammond's Reef. And right adjacent to the beach, to Hammond's Reef, where I would often surf with my beautiful son, Matthew, is Shalawa Meadow. It's a meadow that's dedicated to the Chumash people. And I like to think this is right where the rainbow went down. On this one particular day, Matthew and I wanted to go surfing. We went down to check the surf out. There was no surf, no one on the beach. It was cold there. And he said, Dada, let's go and check the memorial. And right in the middle of the Shalawa Meadow is a memorial, a beautiful memorial dedicated to the Chumash people. You can see the two dolphin figurines on the memorial. And it reads, the sacredness of the land lies in the mind of its people. This land is dedicated to the spirit and memory of the ancestors and their children. Beautiful words from a Chumash poet that direct us to the connectivity between the land and the spirit and the people and the ancestors and the children. Just beautiful words. So when you go up to the memorial, and if you ever come down to Santa Barbara, I encourage you to come down and see this beautiful memorial and visit this sacred space. You leave an offering like a shell or a stone. So we left an offering, and then Matthew ran down the beach. And Matthew's name is a Hebrew name, and it means gift from God in Hebrew. And we ran down to the beach, and he started to collect cobblestones that were on the beach, and he arranged them in a circle in the sand. And he said, Dada, help me. And inside that circle, he made another circle. And inside that circle, he made a third concentric circle. So we had 3 circles of stones in the sand, no one on the beach, just father and son. And in the innermost circle, he put down 2 large rocks and then ran off down the beach. You know, whenever I tell this story, it's like I'm making it up, because it's so, it's just so special. So he got the stick and put some kelp and feathers in the stick and ran back, and he said, Dada, this is a sacred story circle. How about that? This is a sacred story circle, and this is a sacred story stick. And we're going to sit inside the sacred story circle, and we're going to tell each other stories. But there's just one rule. Whoever's got the stick tells the story. And the person that doesn't have the stick is silent. So father and son, just the two of us on this beautiful beach abutting the spiritual Shalawa meadow, sat inside the sacred story circle of Matthew's own construction of my beautiful gift from God. And we passed the stick back and forth, and we told each other stories. And I don't remember the stories we told, but I remember that moment. And out of all the moments I've spent on the beaches of the world surfing the best waves, winning the biggest events, that was the best. That moment of absolute connectivity, eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul, with my beautiful son. And it lasted about an hour, and it was one of the greatest hours of my life. And I spoke at a famous Hawaiian school a few years ago called Kamehameha School, the repository for Hawaiian heritage and culture, a magnificent school in Hawaii dedicated to preserving Hawaiian heritage. And the dean, I spoke in their chapel to thousands of kids, said to me, Shaun, when you were speaking to Matthew, you were speaking in spirit language. How about that? Speaking in spirit language. And I like to think that today, while I've been speaking to all of you, I've been trying to give you my spirit. I've been trying to give you my mana. I've been trying to show you and speak to you about passion, purpose, about life force, and underlying it all is this spirit and this power that we all have to be better and help others be better. So after our beautiful time of connecting and spirit language on the beach, drove up the hill to my home, and that's my home in Montecito, and Matthew dug in his pocket, and as I put my key in the door, he pulled out a stone from his pocket, and I said, Matthew, what's that? He said, Dad, this is a sacred story stone from the sacred story circle. And you know all those stories we told today? They're inside that stone. And he put the stone down outside my garden. And every day when I walk in and my key in the lock and I listen, I can't quite hear the stories, but I can feel that spirit. So I'm hoping today that you all felt my spirit. And now I want to feel your spirit, because this is what we're going to do for the next 15 minutes. I'm giving you a call to action. All of you are going to write your code and you're going to share your code. So this is where you can go and do it. You can either do it on your phone. You can take a picture of the QR code. It's going to take you directly to the site, or else you can go to this web link. And I know they're going to put it in the chat as well. So I'm looking forward to the code. So what we're going to do, this is going to be about a 15-minute process. So the time now is 4:16. So we are going to finish at 4:30. We're going to be back with the codes, and I'm going to give you some super cool music. And I will be back at exactly 4:30. Enjoy.
You and I are children of the sea, where our spirits came to meet before we moved our lips to speak. I saw the world and I saw it in your eyes. I was singing my lullabies when you came right by my side. You and I will never die, 'cause we're dancing on the wind, waiting for the tide as it's coming in. Out the sea go you and me on a ripple that we ride across the ocean to the other side. And I know it doesn't mean a lot to say something happened there that day, 'cause I saw another way, where you live every moment for itself, for you and no one else. and I are children of the sea, where our spirits came to meet before we moved our lips to speak. I saw the world and I saw it in your eyes. I was singing my lullabies when you came right by my side. You and I will never die, 'cause we're dancing on the wind, waiting for the tide as it's coming in. Out to sea go you and me on a ripple that we ride across the ocean to the other side. And I know it doesn't mean a lot to say, something happened there that day, 'cause I saw another way, where you live every moment for itself, for you and no one else, and your heart is free to play. We've got time to recognize ourselves, hiding in our pretty shells that we found here on the shore. We got the space to find the answers in our minds. We're suspended here in time, and we'll stay forevermore. You and I will never die, 'cause we're dancing on the wind, waiting for the tide as it's coming in. Out to sea go you and me on a ripple that we ride across the ocean to the other side. And I know there was meaning in the dance. A meeting wasn't chance, and the moment wasn't planned. And I could see as I looked into your eyes, such a beautiful surprise, this moment of our lives. How did you appear, my love? How'd I draw you near, my love? I sang my song and shined my light. Then you walked in from out of sight. You knew on cue it all was true. This feeling in your heart, and it led you to me, so right through me. That light that shines at the center of my soul led me to you. I could see right through you, to that light that shines at the center of your soul. How did you survive so long? Keep your faith alive so long. And though you had withheld your song, your voice rang through and carried strong. A wish to love, to know what it's all. This joy meant to be shared, and it led you to me, saw right through me, to that light that shines at the center of your soul. Led me to you, I could see right through you, to that light that shines at the center of your soul. Divine music it whispers from. Divine music it whispers from. Divine music it whispers from our hearts. Divine music it whispers from. Divine music it whispers from. Divine music it whispers from our hearts. And it led you to me. You saw right through me to that light that shines in the center of my soul. Led me to you. I could see right through you to that light that shines in the center of your soul. 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 Come on now, open your eyes, look to the skies above, see the clouds dissipate. It's never too late to love. Hold me close, held in your arms, up close to your heart. I feel your pulse, keeping time in the song of your life. Love, lift me up when I am weak. Love, be my voice when I can't speak. Love, lead the way, though I am meek. Show me the way to love. Show me the way. Call my name and I am here. I'm ever so near to you. I light the way when it's dark. I'll make it clear for you. Listen close, follow the sound of your own. Carry on, lead the way, I'll follow you home to love. Love, lift me up when I am weak. Love, be my voice when I can't speak. Love, lead the way, though I am meek. Show me the way to love. Show me the way to love. Show me the way. Show me the way. Yeah. And I are children of the sea, where our spirits came to meet before we moved our lips to speak. I saw the world and I saw it in your eyes. I was singing my lullabies when you came right by my side. You and I will never die, 'cause we're dancing on the wind, waiting for the tide as it's coming in. Out to sea go you and me on a ripple that we ride across the ocean to the other side. And I know it doesn't mean a lot to say something happened there that day, 'cause I saw another way, where you live every moment for itself, for you and no one else, and your heart is free to play. We've got time to recognize ourselves, hiding in our pretty shells that we found here on the shore. We got the space to find the answers in our minds. We're suspended here in time, and we'll stay forevermore. You and I will never die, 'cause we're dancing on the wind, waiting for the tide as it's coming in. Out to sea go you and me on a ripple that we ride across the ocean to the other side. And I know there was meaning in the dance. A meeting wasn't chance, and the moment wasn't planned. And I could see as I looked into your eyes, such a beautiful surprise, this moment of our lives. Oh.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this process. What I'd like you to do now is over the last few years, I've come to realize that while everyone writes amazing lines of code, we all only write 2 lines. One line is about being better. We have this genetic compulsion, motivation to be better. The other is to help others be better. So those are the 2 tributaries of the motivation river of life. I'll be better, I'll help others be better. So I want you to just send me a line of code about being better or helping others be better. You can send it to the same place you sent the first word, paulev.com/Shaun Tomson 929, or you can text Shaun Tomson 929 to that, but you should have already been set up. I will always be kind. I will always provide value for others first. I will always stop to help others in need. So these are beautiful lines. Keep the lines coming. I'm hoping that you keep these. I will always listen. Beautiful, beautiful words. I told you about the sacred story circle and how the person that doesn't have the stick listens. I will have empathy for others who have a different perspective than mine. I will follow my dreams. It's also wonderful, wonderful, that concept of dreams. I will up the people around me. I will lead with compassion. I will lift up the people around me. I will always try to help others find their inner strength. So it's amazing how, as humans, we all have very similar values. And certainly over the last number of years, it feels like the country has been so divided. But ultimately, when we write our codes, we see that our codes are so similar that essentially our core values, I will care for myself like I care for others, are the same. So here you have empathy, self-interest combining together to form the perfect union. Keep these words coming. I will take things that scare me as a way to grow. I love these words. When I read words like this, I like to say that I think I have one of the best jobs in the world, because I see the beauty of the human spirit. I'll be dedicated to helping others whenever possible. To keep these words coming, I will lift up the people around me. I will speak the truth in love. I mean, how good is that? I mean, that word truth, I mean, that is the word for us, I think, in the United States, that word truth. Keep these words coming. Hopefully I'm managing to read all the words that are coming through here. I will be present 100% of the time. I think that one. Keep the words coming. Here we are. I will show appreciation. I will lead with compassion. I will always help others. I will up the people around me. I'll remember that I don't know what others have been through. I mean, isn't that wonderful? I will see the good in others. Words are beautiful. I will not compare Shaun Tomson to Mark Richardson. That's funny. I will be present 100%. I will be generous with my time. I will learn from my failures and paddle back out again. I will forgive and release any hold on wrongs to me. That is, when I say those words, can get a monkey, can get 1,000 pounds off your back. I will forgive and release any hold on wrongs to me. Those are amazing words of freedom. Just forgiving and releasing. I mean, these are just, sorry, I jumped on. I will lead when there's a need to lead. I love this. I will show up for myself and others. I will accept what is given to me and what is not given to me. I mean, that word of acceptance. You know, we hear so much about gratitude, but acceptance is equally as powerful, I think, a concept. I will follow my dreams. I'll give others the benefit of the doubt. I will humbly see my own faults without condemning. I mean, that word humbly is so good. I will stop telling myself I am too old. I keep telling my wife and son, I'm enjoying my youth. They say, you've got no youth left. I say, I've got plenty youth left. I will stop telling myself I'm too old. I love it. I will pursue joy. Just absolute essential simplicity. I will pursue joy. I will show appreciation. How about that? I mean, that's simple gratitude and appreciation. I'll be present 100%. I'll be generous with my time. These words are great. Please keep them coming, because I know we have a lot of people on here, and I will tell my critic self to take a hike. Take a hike. I like that. I will see the good in others. I will care for myself like I care for others. I will evolve. So I encourage everyone, you know, you're going to end up spending over an hour and a half with me today. I will live in the moment. Keep your code. Print your code out. You know, the north wind is going to blow, the south wind is going to blow, the east wind is going to blow. I'll remember I'm here to share my talents. The winds are going to blow all my words away. But your words, your code is forever. And like I say, I still keep my code. And my words are my guide. And your words can be your guide. And I like to say that this method, this system of self-coding, it's open source code. So you, teachers, anyone can use it in any way you wish. It's there for one reason, and it's there just to it's there to help people. I will be compassionate. I will humbly see my own faults without condemning. These words are so, I keep pushing the wrong damn button here. I will always lift others up. I will teach with joy. How about that? I love that. Obviously, from one of the teaching faculty. Thank you. That is so beautiful. I will teach with joy. I will always put passion ahead of profit. I will not look in the shadows for validation. I mean, how good is that? I'll remember there will always be others more fortunate and less fortunate than myself. I mean, how cool are all these statements? So what we're doing here is, I think, a number of things. One is we're getting inspired by everyone's words of passion, power, and poetry. And also, I think this is a wonderful way for us to connect, to see our common values, to see how united we are, to see a common purpose. I will make every effort to have a positive, life-giving influence on those with whom I interact. And also, this is a way for all of us, I think, to get in touch with our best selves, with who we really are and who we will be. So I want to thank all of you. I will give all I have. Oh, I missed that. I will step out of my comfort zone. I will give all I have. I missed. I want to get that one. I will nurture my relationships like a gardener tending her garden. What a beautiful metaphor that is. I'll remember I'm here to share my talents. I will say how I really feel. Beautiful. I mean, just that honesty. I will always put passion ahead of profit. Really beautiful words. And I want to thank everyone I will be generous of heart. I will not sidestep difficulty. I will live in the moment. So I would just like to thank everyone for these beautiful words. I will make decisions thoughtfully, not out of fear, but in faith. I mean, what a wonderful word that is. And I love the connectivity there between fear and faith. I will make decisions thoughtfully. So I want to thank everyone for their wonderful words. You can see everyone else's codes if you go to that URL link or that QR code on it's called the Buzzy site. So I'd like to thank everyone. And what I'd like to do is, if any of you want to contact me, I welcome contact. I'm up on LinkedIn. You can contact me on LinkedIn. You can directly email me, st@shauntomson.com, or you can just go to my website and there's a direct email link there. That's a photo of me with my beautiful son, Luke, who's now 11 years old. So yes, I lost my beautiful son, Matthew, but my wife, Cara, and I now have a beautiful son, Luke. So we're going through the parenting journey again. And to all of you students, I'd like to thank you for all of your time. To everyone that was involved, Doug and Faris and everyone for putting all this together. Thank you very much. And students and teachers, just thank you. And I hope you got to feel some of my spirit. So wonderful to be a part of this, and thank you very much.
Shaun, you got me. I'm a little choked up right now, but wow, that's just, yeah, there's a lot of power in words. And
thanks to Scott and Jason too. Thanks to Scott.
Yeah, what a crew here. And again, I just want to really thank Shaun. Again, I want to thank you. And now what we're going to have is a couple of our local, what we're calling them celebrity guests, talk about their journeys and how they got to where they are. And, you know, I'd really like to start with Marlies, because you were the first on in the group. Marlies, are you ready to talk? There you are. Great. And do you have anything to share, or are you going to just talk?
I'm speaking from the heart.
Good for you.
Okay. So I'm the chief editor for the student section on Santa Cruz Works. Now, we teenagers, we have a lot to say, and we have experiences to write. Language is such a beautiful thing. We all experience it. We all write and express what we feel. And it's a way to unite us. And we want to take it on and write. but we didn't have a platform. But now that Santa Cruz County Education is working with Santa Cruz Works, we're able to have that platform. So I'm in charge of basically reading and editing what students have to say, because you can learn a lot from experiences just reading, and we want to uplift the voices that haven't been heard to a platform like this. I have interviewed students along like experiences like sexual harassment, things that need to be talked about that we don't talk about, and we're writing these because they need to be heard. And I'm all for student leadership, because it takes your story to be heard. It takes you writing, expressing your feelings for people to hear. And that's why I have like this whole motto. It's like taking up space. You need to write to take up space. You need to do what you gotta do to take up space and to communicate what you want, communicate what you need. So that's what all the student section is about, writing, because we need to have that place. If we don't have that, we're going to be silent, and why not write? And that's my whole motto, taking up space. So I need to take up space because I'm the first generation in my family to go to college. I need to take up space because I want to be a future politician, a brown woman politician, because we need more brown people in our local government. I'm taking up that space. I'm taking up that space right now, talking to you guys as a student, as a daughter of people who were immigrants, and as a first generation college student. That's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Marlise. Thank you so much. That's, again, I'm getting choked up just hearing some of these stories. It's amazing. So thank you so much. Next up is Noemi Kawasaki. Are you there, Noemi?
I am, yes.
There you are. Good to see you.
You as well. Can I share my screen? Right here. Okay, so like Doug's mentioned, my name is Noemi Kawasaki, and I am currently a freshman at California State University, Monterey Bay. I'm sure, as of all of you students out there, this year has been super, super tough, battling school while being in a global pandemic. Being a freshman at a new school, definitely, this was not I was not experiencing this, or I was not like anticipating for any of this to happen. You kind of right out of high school expect to go into a new school, meeting new friends and getting to have new experiences. But when that all gets pretty much put to a pause, it's pretty stressful. So about 6 years ago, my family and I went to Santa Barbara, and that's where I met Shaun for the first time. So I'm kind of aware of the I Will and his code, and we went surfing a couple times. And when he gave my dad his book, there was actually the card in the book. And for a couple years, I kept that card in the back of my phone case and, read the book. I was well aware of the code, and I kind of used that to help me get through challenges in my life, whether it were with school or family and surfing. And so this year I spent, because I had more free time, I spent a lot of the time in the water. For the first time, I paddled out to Mavericks, and that was super nerve-wracking, very scary. So the left is me. That was like the first time. And the second picture right here, I don't know if you can see my cursor. This is me right here paddling over. I didn't catch anything. My goal was to just get out there and, stay kind of in the channel and just get the experience in hopes to surf it. These are just a couple pictures of me surfing, in between like in my free time and stuff. And so I spent a lot of the time in the water, learning new things and meeting new people and trying to figure out exactly what my goals were for this year and how I was going to make, life, COVID a lot easier. And so after losing Shaun's the card, we still had the book, and I'd kind of come across it here and there and see it. And I was like, wow, like, especially in a time like we're living in right now, I definitely use that as a way to kind of help me and push me to continue to not let the struggles get to me, since it was definitely hard time. And anytime I felt stressed, I'd go and surf, and I knew that it wasn't going to be like this forever. And so I'd kind of create little kind of like codes for myself, which I will share one at the end, in hopes that would kind of push me to look towards the future. So another thing I did was I decided to start working for a company called WAG. It is, I don't know if you are aware, it's a dog walking company, and it's like this says here, it's a little side hustle, to make a little bit extra money. And so because I love dogs and I knew I was spending a lot of time in the water, and I felt that I had a lot of free time, which for me, having too much free time can kind of get messy, and I can start kind of catching myself into places I really don't want to be, whether it's feeling depressed or anxious or whatever. So I told myself, I was like, okay, I can't let myself get down. I need to find a way that to spend more time and to get outside. And so I researched and found this company. And so these are a couple of dogs that I walked, and that also helped me, relieve stress and stuff. And I still do it. And I'm hoping, definitely probably would not have done it if if we weren't in this situation we are now. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop like as soon as life gets back to normal, because it's definitely taught me a lot about, I've met a lot of people and the owners, and being outside and walking kind of gets me in nature a lot more than being stuck inside and sitting in Zooms pretty much. And so that's pretty much all I have to say. I'll share one of my I wills that I wrote. It's my I will is, I will continue to push personal boundaries and overcome obstacles. And that is in response to not only COVID, since that was a huge challenge and for me, and I'm sure all of you as well, but in the water as well, since one of my goals is to surf Mavericks. Getting in the water as much as possible, big and small waves, will definitely help me there. And COVID also helped because I was able to surf a lot more, which was super fun. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Well, and this is one of the waves that at the lane that Noemi was on in the winter. So I happened to do some drone footage, and I will always be impressed by your surfing skills, Noemi.
Thank you.
And I will make sure that you join us next time we do a Mexican surf trip to Mexico.
Yes, sounds good.
All right. All right. Next up, somebody I know fairly well.
Yeah, 100%. Ready to go. Shout out Doug, who put this together, and Shaun, you're an absolute legend, man. I was lucky enough to sit there as all those, expressions came in, and certainly felt something. So it was wonderful for you to have read out a few of mine and to have felt like somewhat of a rock star just in that anonymous moment. But I guess the stage is mine, and shout out to all the other speakers who've come up. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Got a short little presentation, and we'll bring it up. Okay. One sec, guys. Sorry, I don't think I have to reboot, but okay. Here we go. Can everybody see my screen right now?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'll make it quick. Here's my story. So I'm Santa Cruz native. I have such a blessing for us to grow up in Santa Cruz. To all the other kids there, it's just a magnificent place to be. So I always loved going to the ocean, and definitely didn't surf enough as a kid, but I know Doug is always down to get me out there and show me his ways. Went to Gateway School with Neil, who just appeared, and you guys will meet him soon. And I ended up going to elementary school over at Gateway on Westcliff, and then I went to school over the hill for a bit, and then in Monterey for my last year of high school, so not far from Noemi. And you know, it was a great childhood in Santa Cruz. My first passion was marine biology. Wanted to you know, be with the Monterey Bay Aquarium crowd and, you know, working with the animals, but ended up falling in love with business, which brought me to the University of Michigan. You can see down there in the bottom right, our business school, which is my domain for sure. So here, look at this guy right here, Doug Erickson, Santa Cruz Works. It's an incredible organization, so shout them out. They do so many events, bring so much audience. COVID-19 hit. This was my second year of college and went home. And Doug Erickson, who is the dad of my best friend, one of my best friend, Neil, who you guys will hear from again, and told me, hey, why don't you write this article about venture capital? We got a bunch of venture capitalists here in Santa Cruz, and I want you to write an article about how COVID-19 is affecting the way they think about their investments. I was like, sure, why not? I had done journalism in high school, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'll do this article. You know, I don't know what's going to come of it, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it again for the first time in a long time. So did it, wrote this article. And I remember Doug he sent me emails. He's like, go and interview these 3 venture capitalists. I'm like, what? Like, I can go and interview these venture capitalists and learn everything they have to say about the world and their experiences. And it was magical. It was incredible to ask them questions, to lead with curiosity, to literally build a relationship through an interview. And I thought that this was the most incredible mechanism in the world, the interview. I think the interview is the most magical part of the media world. I think that the interview and learning from others' experiences is the best way to grow and learn. You take things that other people have gone through, you take challenges that other people have faced, and you apply that to your own journey. So I was like, wow, this interview thing is cool. And I love being able to market it and making people interested in that interview. And it was really taking that opportunity to write that article. It planted the seed in my head, you know, the interviews are amazing. And it just put something here that a week later, I had this idea to essentially create the ultimate business podcast for young people. All the podcasts out there were not designed to help young people and answer the questions they had about the business universe. So I decided to take it upon myself to build a media product, a new kind of podcast that would answer the burning questions young people had about the future and the future of business and the way they would go about their careers in startups. And I went out on the journey to fulfill a need in the market, in the media market. And I launched the podcast for less than $15. And it really unraveled the greatest journey of my life, which is to build our future. We're a media company democratizing knowledge through exciting and digestible interviews designed by and for young business leaders and entrepreneurs. So we are conducting interviews with the most successful people on this planet, as well as other young people who are doing huge things. We've built a brand out of the interview and making the interview something young people actually want to consume, something that's not long and boring, but something that's fresh and exciting and will fill you with inspiration. So I've conducted over 140 interviews in the past year, and with founders of incredible companies. And really, I guess what it all comes down to is, you know, you as a young person in the audience, like, you literally have the license to go out and reach out to anybody you want to, anybody on this planet, because you are young. You don't have authority over much, but what you do have authority on is asking people how they were successful. And older people always want to help you. And, you know, I've skinned my way into interviews with some of the most successful CEOs and executives, and you just have to ask. So just go out and ask. And that's what this brand is. It's about going out and asking and creating things out of nothing, just by virtue of asking. Reach out to people, ask to talk to them. And I guess if there's one piece of advice, if I was a high schooler or early college kid, it would be start a podcast, start a blog, and reach out to people. Because if you have one of these platforms, people will be willing to talk to you. It's not just like coffee. They'll come, you provide value to them, and you can unlock your future in a pretty incredible way by doing that. So I have a few of my 12 I will statements here. Shout out Shaun Tomson again. And I think of all of these, I think the third one, and I would note, always adding and providing value to others first. I haven't been paid to do any of these interviews, to put this knowledge out into the world, to market it out to people. And I think when you put yourself out there and you do good by others and you share knowledge, you democratize things, then good things will happen to you. So I've been blessed with so many incredible things happening to me just by putting myself out there in the world and being prominent on the internet. Go do cool things. People will notice. They will hit you up. They'll reach out to you, and it will be an incredible expression of serendipity to put yourself out there, provide value for others. Good things will come back to you. But that's all I have today. Thank you everyone for listening. And I'm excited to hear from Neil. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was great. Those are some strong I will statements too. Wonderful. And yes, you need to interview Shaun on one of your podcasts.
Absolutely. I already took down his email. I'm always in email collection mode.
Great. Okay, Mr. Neil.
Hello, you can see me. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes, you can. Okay, hi. So I am the son of Doug Erickson here, who's hosting the event. And also, yes, great friend of Michael. We've known each other since kindergarten, fighting over Legos. So yeah, I was born and raised on the west side of Santa Cruz. I grew up playing music at Gateway, and even when I was like 4 years old, going around and doing talent shows. Santa Barbara City College for journalism.
You're having bandwidth issues, Neil.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Oops. Is it better now? Any chance?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I went to Santa Barbara City College for originally journalism. Decided, I kind of care a lot about the world, and I think poli-sci might be a better major for me. So I ended up, starting to switch to political science. And then recently I've actually dropped out of City College, and I am seeking a career in music. So I'm just going to talk to you guys about my story here. I was, again, going to City College for political science and journalism. And when the pandemic hit, I was not doing well in my classes. I had never failed a class in my life, and I failed an online class. And I was just thinking, this isn't where I'm supposed to be right now. So I thought, all right, I'll just give myself, a semester break, and I'll pursue what I want to pursue for a semester and then go back to college. So I took this semester off, and what happened over this semester has completely changed my life. Me going from doing school and trying to find something, trying to find my passion, switching majors, to taking this break off and saying, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do. And doing exactly what I wanted to do my passion was music. And so over the past 4 or 5 months, I've released my first song. I've started working at a studio. I'm going to be getting paid there soon. I've been, doing everything that I can to just get better at music. And because I'm doing everything I can to get better at music, I'm also just getting way better at being myself. I'm getting way better at doing what I want to do to be who I am. And I wasn't in a good spot before this. I was smoking every day, not getting out of bed until 1, even 2 sometimes, not being motivated. And now, since I've changed and focused on myself, I have been waking up at 8, which is unheard of for me. I mean, my dad would be confused. Waking up at 8, making breakfast every morning, and then just getting started on what can I do today to better myself. And I love that. I didn't know, Shaun, the first I will statement from someone else was, I will always be myself. I was going to originally show just one of my acoustic videos of me singing my song that I already released. But I figured I would show you guys a little bit of a different song that's actually called Be Yourself. I was thought too good of an opportunity. This actually doesn't have a release date at all. You guys are the only people that are going to hear this for a long time, but I'll show you guys that right now. I hope the audio quality is all right.
If you don't use that brain that God put in your head, one of these days you'll be sitting on a front porch somewhere and you won't hardly know what's going on. So don't give up. If times are hard, good things or bad things last forever. But most generally, we are in control of our own destiny. I mean this.
Sometimes you have to realize something's just ain't going right. Oh, oh. Sometimes you have to recognize the fire's only half as bright. Oh, oh. You don't have to fool yourself into thinking you could love her and never love another. No, it's not that sad.
It's not that sad
to be sad. You don't have to lose yourself. Don't lose yourself. Pretending to be perfect in a world that's never worth it. Oh, it's not that bad.
It's never bad
to be sad. So I'll take my time to not feel fine. Cause I don't wanna wake up if I'm not who I am when I'm alone. I just wanna feel at home. No, there's no need to wake up if nothing is how you felt. It's time to wake up. Be yourself, not somebody else.
My Instagram, if you want to follow me, my Spotify, if you want to listen to my one song that I have out, and then also have my SoundCloud, which has 2 songs out on there if you want to hear that. And then in the chat, I'm going to put a link to all of those. So if you click that link, you can find it very easily. But yeah, thank you so much. And Shaun, I loved everything that you had to say. I also loved meeting you the other day. That was fantastic. And thank you so much for having me.
Any of our celebrity guests. So I think we're about ready to wrap it up.
I'd like to say I was just inspired by the 3 presenters. Really wonderful to feel the fire of young people, because you know the youth is the future, and it was great to be a part of this program, and hopefully my little method has given some inspiration. And I'd like to thank the students, and also a big shout out to the teachers, and then to you, Doug, and everyone that has you know helped put it together. It's wonderful that you're doing this outreach, because it's been a tough time, man. It's been a hard 14 months, and I think that students have suffered a lot more than we realized. So it's been great to be a part of it, and very cool. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you again. Jason, Scott, Ferris, any final words before we wrap up? And we can't hear you, Jason, you're on mute.
Just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for this wonderful partnership, and thank you all for joining us for the last 2 hours and 10 minutes. It flew by, and Shaun, we're going to continue to follow the I Will and the code, and promote this across Santa Cruz County students. So look for more Think Big series when we come back to school in the fall, hopefully back to some normalcy. at that point. So thank you all, and have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Not who keeps you warm at night. Sometimes you have to be alive to thrive and find yourself. Listen to the stars at night. She doesn't have to hold you tight. So I'll take my time to not feel fight. 'Cause I don't wanna wake up if I'm not who I am. When I'm alone, I just wanna feel at home. No, there's no need to wake up if nothing is how you felt. It's time to wake up. Be yourself, not somebody else.